This video is sponsored by the following people. Please click the links in the description below.
Yeah, that's where I actually learned one of the most useful things from him, which is just using a stick to push it.
Gently, I would go like this and flatten it all out.
And it was one of my favourite tools in the workshop, is this little stick. This is the best tool that I have ever, I didn't even purchase it, I just found it. This is just perfect for getting that even grind. That doesn't matter too much at the moment because this is pre-heat treat, but for just getting that nice even, you can apply nice bits of pressure. Just a perfect little tool. So after we've ground this after heat treatment, the belt will look like this, which is perfect. You can still use it for so much more, but it's not the most efficient for grinding hardened steel. Great little tips, just keep these for stuff like profiling, rough grinding before heat treat, where you don't need to worry about the steel heating up too much because you don't have a temper to ruin. I said if I really pushed myself, I was trying to rush, probably with a fresh one of these, grind a heat treated knife in like 10 minutes probably. So it's really good at exactly that, just shredding, like hogging off material. If you've just got something, say with like something a bit thicker, maybe like a meat cleaver, where you don't have to worry too much about pressure and you can really just like, right, I need to remove that material. I find these are really good. So I'm always a little bit skeptical about my grinding. Not skeptical about how well it works. It's just, I never really see anyone else grind like this, so I was never really sure if it's right or it's like taboo. But I mean, it works so well for me. I find better, to be honest, just because you can get that. So say if you're grinding like this, you're working 1 inch at a time, 1.5 inches at a time, and I find it a bit more difficult to get that straight line. Whereas if you're working with landscape like this, then you get the entire length. I find it's a lot easier to grind. It's quite good if you want to do the sort of more complex grind. You can get a sort of concaved grind there with sort of like a little bit of a cheek there, which is good for food release. Something I thought I'd mention as well is that you might notice not seeing any sparks coming from this is because of the cladding of the steel. So we haven't actually got to the carbon steel yet. So when you get to the carbon steel, you start seeing light sparks flying off. So that's sort of an indicator that you've got down to the core, and then you can start working from there. Now it's starting to poke out on both sides. So now I'm going to be happy that it's in the centre and you're going to have a nice carbon core going down the middle. Now it's just about evening that up and making sure it's a dead straight line. Warping to one side or having little wiggles in it, which is, it gets a bit more tricky because it's just a sort of a precision thing that comes over time of just sort of knowing where to take materials off. You can tweak it, but it was always a bit nerve-wracking at this point. Well, the bottlenose actually came soon after I started making knives. I think I finished my first knife in November 2019, and then I think the 20th of January I made the first ever bottlenose. And no intention there, I was just trying to make funky shapes and just seeing what you can do with a chef knife. And then, oh actually, don't know why I'm talking about it. There. So that was the first, you can see the progression here actually, so that was the first ever bottlenose, and it originally had this horrible handle that like dipped down there. I think I was trying to recreate, I've looked up recently and it looks nothing like this, but I thought that there was a knife in the Prince of Persia like this, and that's what I was trying to design from. So I was trying to give it sort of this Middle Eastern sort of traditional knife look, which I think is where that came from. And then as time went on, the shape sort of progressed. There was quite a big market for it. People sort of wanted something that was a bit different, still worked functionally as a knife and worked perfectly. And from there it just sort of snowballed, and now I'd say it's my most popular selling knife. I was thinking about this the other day actually, of why I sort of tend to lean to this style of knife more with sort of the bigger face like that. So back when, through part of the period of me being a chef, I used to do ski seasons, and on ski seasons there would be lots and lots and lots of vegetable prep. On my final ski season I bought my first nice knife, which was a Sanmai Nakiri. I'd had a Nakiri before that, but I just absolutely fell in love. Even though it's just predominantly meant for veg, just how versatile and just how easy they were to use. So when I came in to making knives, I wanted to have something which had that ease of use and holding of that big face of the Nakiri, how you could use it to scoop something up, or you could use it to crush something, how you could just use the butt of the blade there if you just needed to chop something. So I think that's what I was sort of trying to go for when first designing this. That tip, I don't know why it was there originally. I was not good at making knives at this point, so I had no beneficial reason, but as time went on I realised that because of that dip there, it gives it an extra bit of length. So this is a 6-inch knife, but if you were to straighten that tip out, it would go to about 6.5 inches or so. I just liked that. I found it was a shape I just sort of fell in love with because it was really different. I hadn't seen anyone doing it before. Progressed from wanting to have a funky shape to use, and then also liking the sort of big faces that Nakiris have and the versatility of them, despite them being a veg knife. So I wanted to create something. It wasn't a big 8-inch chef knife, and also wasn't a Nakiri, and had my own twist to it. And from that, this sort of developed. That was not my intention at all when I made this. But when I made this, I then made another one and realised that people quite liked it, and then realised that I quite liked it, and then realised that it does actually have a good few functions to it, apart from just looking odd. But yeah. We're getting pretty close to the final thickness that you want from the 36 grit belt. So now we're gonna focus on making these transitions just all flat. So you can see I've started doing it there, flattening it up from what was originally cheek. So on my monosteel blades, I like to leave a bit of a cheek there for food release. On these, I just like to, just do a completely flat ground. That done, so move on to the contact roll now. Start at 80 grit and then go up to about 400, and then I finish my knives on a what are they called? Conditioning belt. Is that what they're called? So that's one, surface conditioning belt. I take it up to 400 just to give the conditioning belt a nice canvas essentially to paint on. Because you could probably go from 80 grit and then start on a rough conditioning belt and get a conditioning belt finish, but I like to just get a nice canvas of 400 grit and then do the conditioning belt on top of that. Now just round the choil just before you get the final finish on the blade. Yeah, I love running the belt like this, but I don't actually think it's meant to be run like this, because I believe it's meant to stretch up there and go over that. But I mean, it doesn't quite have a good amount of torque, but it's good. Yeah, that's the choil now nice and rounded now. On to the final finish. I just do that beforehand, otherwise, I don't know if you can see, it sort of scuffs up the sides there. So I just do that before doing the main blade. that's that done. So it's, yeah, giving it a really nice sort of satin finish on it. You won't get to see it, but we will dunk this in the ferric chloride 3 different times each 5 minutes. So that just gives you a sort of base layer etch. So if you were to go in just now, it would still look nice, look really pretty, but this just gives it a little bit of texture, a bit more character to the blade.
Thank you to Alex, James, Sean and Daniel for being our new Patreon promoters. If you're interested in supporting us and getting some free stuff, visit patreon.com/UK Blade Show.